Hello, I'm Tiffany Payton, and I'm joined now by Valerie Sherman, a 2009 alumna of the College of Law and an avid crocheter whose public yarn installations, also known as YarnBombs, have gotten a lot of attention across the city and definitely inspired a lot of smiles. Valerie, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Tiffany.
So let's just jump right in. What is yarn bombing and how did you get started?
Sure. So yarn bombing is just covering usually an outdoor object with knitting or crochet panels. And I saw books about it. I saw whenever you crochet and knit, people share things with you on social media. So I knew that it existed. And when I moved to Chicago, I saw sort of the zigzaggy bike racks that just looked like it was aching for some decoration. So there's one on my block, and I started doing it in November 2019. I thought I was going to get like a ticket or get arrested or something. So I went down there at like 5 a.m. and I was like installing it. And people in the neighborhood have really jumped onto it. And they've been, really sweet in this whole time.
Yeah, definitely. Chicago is a city of color. We love colors and skyscrapers. So just the fact that you've seen that and just thought, okay, let me add some color. It looks kind of sad here is just awesome. So you've definitely gotten a lot of attention for your yarn installations around Chicago, as you mentioned. At what point did you realize this was something that people really enjoyed?
So there's a neighborhood Facebook page, Hello South Loop, where I live, and I didn't know that it existed. And people were like, who's doing this? And then someone somehow figured out that I had done the one by Harold Washington Library, and they were like, it's her. And then they all were like, oh my God, introduce yourself. And so I did, and like hundreds of people were commenting, and I was like, oh, okay. But also people would start like yelling at me from their cars, and they'd be like, yarn lady. And just like as they passed on the street, telling me how much they enjoyed and how much especially their children enjoyed walking around the neighborhood and finding the pieces during the pandemic. And so it just, I realized it was, people actually enjoyed them, even if they kind of didn't really say anything when they were walking by, or when I was installing, they would just kind of like nod or something. But then people would post secret pictures of me installing things, and they would be like, yarn Banksy. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So it's been a fun thing.
Yeah, and I can say based on your stories, your yarn bombing adds value to people's lives, especially during the pandemic. Like I said, we all needed some color. We were stuck inside during the same routine. So I think I speak for a number of people when I say that you added value to people's lives again. So something I've noticed about your work is that it never creates an obstacle for people. So for instance, when you talked about doing your yarn bombing on the bike rack, I know people were still able to lock their bikes up, but is that approach important to your work? Making sure that you can provide beautiful work, but that it doesn't create an obstacle for people living their everyday lives?
Definitely. And I'm a biker myself, and a cyclist, and I enjoy, doing that in the city. And so I didn't want to impede anyone using that thing. I typically do like pipes off to the side, just kind of hidden places. When I do a tree or something, it's typically a dead tree, and we're just adding a little color. And when I have spoken to police about it, they've told me, just don't do a fire hydrant. And I'm like, okay, got it. Like, I can see how that would create an obstacle for our fire department. So, that's kind of an obvious one, but definitely want people to, it just adds something to it, but doesn't transform the object totally.
Yeah, so with that in mind, how many public pieces have you done? And are there any sort of public structures you gravitate toward? And what is the most difficult piece you've made?
So I have done a lot of bike racks because they're the same size. It's easy. So you crochet or knit a piece about 6.5 inches wide, and you can just go. In fact, I worked with a group of blind knitters and crocheters, and I told them, just do it as long as you want, do it about the width of a dollar bill. And then they were able to make pieces, and I sewed them on for them. So it's a very easy first thing to do. One of the harder pieces that I did, there's a big marble sphere at 13th and State. And it was kind of hard I'm like, how am I going to do this? I'd been looking for a sphere for a while, and I found it, but it's really big. It's like over 100 inches in circumference. So I was like, how am I going to do this? So I made a bunch of stars and sewed them together. And so at first it looked really good, and then it started sagging under its own weight, especially after it rained or something. And so it just was a little bit of a challenge. So right now the sphere is empty, it's naked, it doesn't have anything on it. So I want to come back and get that again someday. But that was a neighborhood favorite as well, and that was the one that I was sitting on when I was on in the Chicago Tribune. That was a really special piece for me.
Yeah, so you've done the spear, you've done a few bike racks. What is your goal for yarn bombing? Do you have any ambitions or any other projects you would like to try?
So I've really enjoyed raising funds for charity through it. I did the facade of a building on the south side to raise money for the renovation of the Forum in Bronzeville. It's an old jazz venue, one of the few remaining, and it was a really exciting project. And I just really want to bring a little bit of a smile. Sometimes when I'm going back and fixing a piece or I'm installing, people were walking by and they're like, why? Why did you make a garden gnome? Or like, why did you make flower? What is this? And I'm like, it's just to be weird. It's just to kind of bring you out of your day. It's to bring a smile, and especially a lot of things that are like rusty. It's to just make it look a little better and make the city a little bit softer.
Awesome. So we talked about your installations, right? And some of the ones I've seen are huge, like your piece at the Indiana Convention Center. That one was massive. So do you usually yarn bomb alone, or do you have a team that helps you?
That one was a team for sure. I probably did 50 to 60% of it, but I called my mom, I called my friends. I very quickly realized I was in over my head on that one. And that was huge. That was like two 10 by 10 square things. I mean, it was huge. And then another project we did, the 606, and I only did one panel, and there's a bunch of fence panels on the Bloomingdale Trail, the 606, at the Humboldt Overlook. And so that was a group of about 40 knitters and crocheters. So I led the group. We informed everyone how to install it. We arranged the installation day. We worked with the park district. So like last year in 2020, it was my year of like solo yarn bombing. And then 2021 was really the year of collaboration. Most of my projects were working with other people.
Wow, definitely. So with that in mind, has yarn bombing inspired you to see your surroundings differently? Are you constantly walking down the street thinking that bench will be perfect to yarn bomb? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, at first, when it was very new, I would definitely do that, walk around the neighborhood. And like I said, I was looking for a sphere one time, or I was thinking about, like, I had musical notes and I was like, what's a nice flat thing I could put some musical notes on? So, these days I have been doing more bike racks and just kind of thinking about colors or using up scrap yarn this winter. Winter is kind of the low time for yarn bombers because it's really cold
Yes.
and you need to have your fingers out so you can actually like sew these things on, so you get cold really fast. So I'm taking a moment, but I'm thinking about, and we're moving this winter. And so when I come back to Chicago, every time I come back, I want to install something somewhere in Chicago.
Awesome. So what is the most satisfying part of your work?
So at first, I did not think anyone would even notice them. And so it wasn't like an important thing to me that they be recognized or that people particularly like love them. And so to be recognized and to be like a little like minor neighborhood celebrity has been a really pleasant like surprise of this whole thing. And everyone's on board. They all love it. I did one at I think one of my high points besides being in the Tribune was I did rainbow bike racks outside of the Harold Washington Library, and I called it Reading Rainbow after the LeVar Burton show growing up that I watched on PBS. I love him. And so I was like, oh, if LeVar Burton could just like see this. Well, then everybody in the neighborhood started tweeting to him. Like I tweeted it to him, but he gets tweeted like millions of times a day. So other people started retweeting it, and then he responded and he commented on it, and I just lost it because he was like, it's in front of a library, it's public art, I love it. And I was like, oh, LeVar Burton. Like, so that was just kind of, that was a really nice point. Just the recognition, people getting it, people enjoying it when I didn't expect that. I think that has been really cool.
Yeah, and I can definitely say personally that your work deserves all the recognition it gets, and that plus more. So I see you have a piece on. Would you like to explain to the viewers the story behind that one?
Oh, sure. So in Chicago, in normal times, pre-pandemic times, there's a knitting convention in the burbs called Stitches Midwest. And I saw this and I was like, I have to make this. So it's from the Neighborhood Yarn Company. It's called the Fox Paws Shawl. And it's a kind of intricate pattern. And for once, I wanted to make the pattern with exactly the yarn that they had. Normally, knitters and crocheters, we kind of, oh, I want that, but I want pink, or I like that, but I'm going to make it longer. Like I just made it exactly with their yarn and bought it right there on the spot. So when everything opens up again, YarnCon downtown in April is awesome, and Stitches Midwest in August is awesome as well.
Thank you. And what advice do you have for those who want to start yarn bombing?
So, go measure the object, see how big it is, think about what you might want to put on there, and then you go home and you make your piece, and you might have to make it a couple of times. I made a little R2D2 and C3PO that I had to make a couple of times before it fit on the pipes that I got it. And then just sew it on and just kind of see what happens. See if, post it on your social media and spread the word about your fun pieces. There's a really cool yarn bombing community on Instagram that I've found, and I just find a lot of inspiration there too. So join in, and an easy way to start is the Roses Against Violence project. You make a little purple rose and you put it on something, and it's a statement against violence against women all around the world that people are getting involved in. And it's easy. You just make a little purple rose.
Thank you, Valerie. Those are all the questions I have for you today, and the DePaul family wishes you the best of luck and continued success with your work. Thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany.